Hello and welcome to this episode of Bullseye. Today's subject is very important because it comes to Goa's policing, and the manner in which the police-public relationship is completely skewed in Goa. The question that we are asking is, who polices the police? The point that we are making is, please protect the uniform, but protect the citizen too, and protect the citizen first. This is Inc. Goa, and I'm Shujoy Gupta. Chief Minister Pramod Sawant has issued a strong warning following a confrontation at the Sangye police station connected with the Nondurle bridge dispute. His message is that nobody has the right to obstruct, threaten, or physically intimidate the police. Very fine, especially when they are performing their duty. Very correct. And on that fundamental principle, there should be no disagreement. Whether the person involved is a politician, an activist, a businessman, or an ordinary citizen, physically threatening a policeman cannot be justified because somebody is angry with the police or believes that the police have acted unfairly. So far, so good. The police we know are an essential function of the state. They deal with crime, they deal with accidents, they deal with violence, emergencies, crowd control. They are carrying out their lawful duties, and they deserve all the protection that they deserve. And the government is absolutely entitled to make it clear that an assault on the uniform will attract the law. But the Chief Minister made another important observation while speaking about this controversy. He said the police must deal with people patiently and humanely. And that part of the statement deserves as much attention as his warning to those who threaten policemen. And today we will go into the track record of Goa's police treating people humanely and passionately. And unfortunately, that track record has a lot of black marks. In fact, sadly, to report this, it is almost all black. Because the larger question before Goa is not whether people should be permitted to intimidate the police. Clearly, they should not. The question is whether the same determination to punish intimidation, assault, and abuse is visible when the person committing that assault or accused of committing that assault is himself wearing a police uniform. This is where Goa has a problem. And it is not a problem that has emerged from one incident or one police controversy. If we look at the period from 2012 onwards, and especially at a series of cases over the last few years, a disturbing pattern emerges where allegations of custodial assault, illegal detention, humiliation, excessive use of police power, and questionable criminal cases are followed by inquiries, transfers, suspension, and promises of investigation against the police in some of the cases. But the final stage of visible accountability often becomes extremely difficult to locate. And this is our problem. And I'm using 2012 as the base year because that is the time when the last BJP government came to power. And this is a party that has ruled the state and continues to rule the state even till now. Now, the argument cannot be that policemen are frequently accused unfairly, partially when they act against politically influential people or organized criminal interest. But if an accusation is false, the quickest way of protecting the reputation of the police is to complete the inquiry, establish the facts, and clear the officer. Allowing serious allegations to remain unresolved for months and months damages good policemen as much as it protects the bad ones. Now let us look at official data that tells us that this concern cannot simply be dismissed as anti-police rhetoric. Complaints before the State Police Complaints Authority increased sharply in 2025. There were 71 complaints in 2023, 70 in 2024, and 115 in 2025, which means 256 complaints against the police reached the authority in 3 years, while 134 were reportedly pending. The figures were last published in March 2026. What do these complaints cover? They included allegations relating to the refusal to register FIRs, assault on complainants, harassment, abuse of police power, arrests without valid reasons. It is equally significant that the Police Complaints Authority itself remained non-functional for a considerable period of time between 2018 and 2021, 3 long years, because its chairperson and members had not been appointed. This is shocking. If institutions created to examine complaints against the police are either non-functional or carrying large numbers of pending complaints, then accountability cannot begin and end with telling citizens that they must respect the uniform. Respect has to travel in both directions. One of the cases that illustrates this problem goes back to March 2022 and involves Hanumant Parab of Pisurle. Parab was involved in protests connected with mining transportation, illegal mining transportation, agricultural land and damage transportation, and damage to agricultural land and local water resources. He subsequently alleged that after being called to the Valpoi police station, he was brutally assaulted in custody by the then DYSP Sagar Ikoskar and other policemen. What followed is instructive because Parab did not simply make an allegation and disappear. He complained to senior police authorities, approached constitutional authorities outside Goa, and eventually went to the Bombay High Court at Goa. Representation also actually traveled through the offices of the President, the Prime Minister, and Union Home Ministry before returning to the Goa administration for action. This extraordinary journey of Hanumant Parab tells us something about the imbalance between a citizen and the police establishment. If somebody alleges that he has been assaulted by the police, then that complaint must be taken into action, because if he says that he's been assaulted by any ordinary person, there is a relatively straightforward expectation that the complaint will be registered. Why can't the same be the case when the complaint is against a police person? And that is the big question. So why should an ordinary citizen have to fight so many battles for such a long year just to register a complaint against the police? The Hanumant Parab case therefore raises a simple question even today. What was the final outcome of that case? What happened after the representations, court proceedings and inquiries and public outrage? What was criminal responsibility conclusively established or rejected? Was anybody finally punished? That is the question. Then there is another category of policing in Goa that needs scrutiny. And this has to do with citizens opposing anti-people government projects. The anti-coal and double tracking movement became one of Goa's largest civic movements during the period around 2020. Thousands of citizens came out because they believed that railway expansion, coal transportation, and associated infrastructure threaten villages, agricultural land, the environment, and Goa's long-term character. Shandor became the symbolic center of these protests when these protesters occupied railway tracks overnight, and railway tracks where there was no train passing by at all. They did it at a time when there was no train movement, while Velsao, Kansauli, and other villages subsequently became centers of resistance. Cases were registered against activists and organizers following some of these protests. Again, the point here is not that being an environmental activist gives somebody immunity from criminal law. If there is violence, if there's destruction of property, or any identifiable offense, the law should operate. The most serious question is what happens when large number of protesters are drawn into criminal cases for merely participating in political or environmental resistance. For somebody employed in Goa permanently, repeatedly appearing before a court is already a burden. For a young Goan whose livelihood depends on joining a ship, working in the Gulf, or traveling abroad for employment, the consequence can be significantly greater. A criminal case can mean applications in courts, bail conditions, lawyers' meetings, questions connected with passports and travel permissions, lawyers' fees, and uncertainty over whether an employer who expects a worker to report on a particular date will continue waiting. It would be wrong to say that every activist facing a case automatically loses a passport or a foreign job, because that is not how the law works. But there are cases when this also happens. Anybody familiar with the lives of seafarers and Goans employed overseas understands this practical reality. Even temporary restrictions, repeated court appearances, or the need to obtain permission to travel can affect employment. And that is what we need to figure out. That is why the police must exercise enormous care when invoking criminal law against citizens involved in peaceful resistance. The police do not belong to the government of the day. I repeat this, the police do not belong to the government of the day. They are not an enforcement arm of the ruling party. Their constitutional responsibility is to enforce the law impartially, which means protecting the right of citizens to oppose the very government under which the police administration operates. Do not forget that. The issue becomes even more serious when allegations move from questionable prosecution to physical violence inside police stations. The Maina Kurturi episode in South Goa is one of the most disturbing recent examples. 5 young people, including a minor, alleged that after a clash at Davorli, they were taken to the Maina Kurturi police station and assaulted while in custody. The allegations were serious enough for the police department to initiate action. Two sub-inspectors, Gaurav Nayak and Sanket Nayak, were suspended immediately following a preliminary inquiry, while two constables and a head constable already had faced suspension on the same case. The Goa Human Rights Commission also took suo motu cognizance of these allegations. Inc. Goa highlighted this case because this was not just an argument between the police and the protesters on the road during a chaotic confrontation. These were allegations concerning what happened to young men after they were under the physical control of the police. 5 suspensions may appear to demonstrate action. An administrative suspension is certainly preferable to ignoring an allegation. Fair enough. But suspension is not the end of accountability. It is only the beginning of an investigation. The real question is whether the offenses were committed, who was responsible, what the CCTV footage showed, whether the CCTV footage was available itself or not, whether senior officers knew what was happening, whether criminal proceedings followed, ultimately, whether there will be a transparent conclusion. If young men can be beaten inside a police station, an ultimate memory of that case is simply that some policemen were suspended, the deterrent is very limited. A transfer or a suspension cannot become the institutional equivalent of making a controversy disappear until public attention shifts elsewhere. Then we come to the case of Monu Sheikh of Valpoi, which is perhaps one of the clearest examples of why police accountability cannot be treated as a secondary issue. Monu Sheikh was 28 years old. He was taken into custody on the night of April 25th and 26th, 2026, in connection with a complaint involving an alleged minor girl, alleged to have been his girlfriend. His family had alleged that while he was in police custody, he was brutally assaulted by PSI Pratmesh Gawas and other policemen. I repeat the name, PSI Pratmesh Gawas. They later claimed that CCTV footage showed contained an audio in which Moin could be allegedly heard crying and screaming, and the family alleged that several policemen were involved, reportedly in giving him a sound thrashing. 2 days after his release, on April 28th, Moin died by suicide. That would have already required the most transparent and independent investigation into this case, but the controversy became even more serious because questions were then raised about the medical record itself. Newspapers reported that sources spoke of an initial postmortem examination recording multiple injuries, while a later version reportedly characterized those injuries as simple in nature. The delay surrounding the release of autopsy findings and the reported difference between the two serious versions of the autopsies led Moin's family to fear that evidence related to his alleged custodial torture or assault were being diluted. Instead, Moin's family and residents protested outside the Valpoi police station for 2 consecutive days. They made it very clear that merely transferring PSI Prathamesh Gavas to restore the situation was not enough. They demanded suspension, arrests, and proper investigation of everybody allegedly involved. To be fair, the Valpoi MLA and Health Minister Vishwajit Rane himself wrote to the DGP seeking re-investigation. But again, what has happened since then? The matter has gone outside the police station, beyond the protests. Moin's brother Sufyan Sheikh has approached the Bombay High Court at Goa seeking transfer of the investigation to the CBI and has alleged illegal detention and serious custodial torture. On August 6th, the High Court directed that CCTV footage from the Valpai police station covering the period from April 18th to April 26th be preserved while the case proceeds. So this is where we need to understand, if you look at the entire chronology, we must understand what is going on in the Goa Police. That is why the Chief Minister's use of the word humane when speaking about policing is so important. Humane policing is not a slogan. It means that the citizen entering a police station, even as an accused person, is entitled to emerge with his constitutional rights intact. Custody does not suspend citizenship, and it certainly does not confer the license to physically punish somebody else before a court has even determined guilt. Then we come to the Samuel Braganza case in Mapsa. This raises another kind of concern about the police, public humiliation, and mental distress. Samuel Braganza died by suicide on June 5th, following controversy over a viral video allegedly showing him dumping garbage and the police proceedings that followed thereafter. His family alleged that the events surrounding the police questioning and the manner in which the issue was handled subjected them to severe harassment. A departmental inquiry under the North Goa SP Vishwesh Karpe was instituted, and the Goa Human Rights Commission also intervened. Police sources maintained that proper procedure had been followed and the preliminary investigation did not reveal procedural lapses. Inc. Goa's investigations, detailed conversations with family members, and other evidence gathered pointed to the contrary. But Inc. Goa is not an investigating agency. The police is. That is why the purpose of serious journalism is not to pronounce police guilt, but it is merely to record facts honestly and point to the right direction and ask the right questions, and that is what we do. Before the end of July, more than 7 weeks after Samuel's death, reports stated that the investigation was still incomplete. 7 weeks, mind you. And important questions remained unanswered. 7 weeks, mind you. There were also reported questions connected with injuries noticed during the post-mortem and also the source of the firearm involved in his death. That is why it is important to do these inquiries properly and on time, because the public and the people need answers, and they need answers on time. If police officers have been falsely accused, inquiries should conclude quickly to clear the names. But if misconduct has appeared, the same inquiry should result in consequences beyond a transfer. Either outcome is preferable, either outcome is preferable to permanent ambiguity. Then there is a larger question of politically sensitive issue of police postings, transfers, and the perceptions that some police officers enjoy proximity because their proximity, some policemen often, I'll say this line again. Then there is a larger and more sensitive issue of police postings, transfers, and the perception that some officers enjoy protection because of proximity to politicians. Now, this is not just a propaganda. On September 24th, Chief Minister Pramod Sawant himself directed DYSPs, police inspectors, and PSIs who had remained in police stations for more than 3 years should be transferred. He specifically referred to inspectors who had obtained preferred postings as a favor, who did not move. Around the same time, more than 700 police personnel who had remained in the same stations for over 7 years were transferred. Imagine 700 policemen remaining in the same police station for 7 years. This acknowledges the existence of a culture in which preferred postings can become favors. This is also important because this points to a complete proximity and even a nexus between police personnel and politicians. And that is what we have to look at very seriously. Now, there are practical measures that can be taken. Every allegation of custodial assault should automatically trigger immediate preservation of all CCTV footage so that families do not have to appear to the High Court to get it. Serious allegations of custodial violence should be investigated independently of officers and the police station involved. Department inquiries should operate within defined timelines and their conclusion should be made public wherever legally permissible. The government should also publish a comprehensive annual statistic showing how many complaints were received against police personnel, how many were substantiated, how many resulted in departmental proceedings, and how many led to criminal cases being filed against police people. This is how confidence is created. You have to build a system in which citizens can see what happens when police power is abused. And that is why Pramod Sawant's message that the police should equally be humane should also be seen against the track record of the police not being humane. And that is where we have to draw a line and we have to tell the Chief Minister, please look at inhumane cases that are still pending against policemen who behaved in a manner that is an insult to the uniform that he or she wears. The Chief Minister is therefore correct that policemen should not be intimidated, and as I said in the beginning, the same should be applied against policemen who intimidate common people beyond what is legally permissible. And that is important. Policemen should be protected, but protect ordinary Goans from intimidation by policemen too, with equal determination. Build a system in which an officer who behaves lawfully knows that the state will stand behind him, but an officer who assaults, humiliates, or falsely implicates a citizen should know that the uniform will not save him. Can Chief Minister Pramod Sawant ensure that this system happens in Goa? Because if he wants police to be both strong and humane, reforms to begin on both sides. And that is the bullseye today. Another small message, hopefully another strong message. Keep following and supporting in Goa for absolutely impartial, correct, honest, and people-centric journalism.